Good afternoon. I now reopen this meeting, and I will now give the floor to the Honorable Minister of Justice to answer the clarification questions that was posed by the honorable members of Parliament. Minister, you now have the floor.
Good afternoon, Chair. Good afternoon, honorable members of Parliament. Good afternoon to those in the Tribune, my colleagues, and also to the listening public, televised, internet, or elsewhere. Good afternoon. In continuation of the clarification questions, through you, Chair, on the honorable member MP Duran, why are the public meetings cancelled for safety while no crimes are linked to political events? Yet only political events are cancelled. To my person, there have been no reports that any crimes have been politically linked, and the investigation is still ongoing. Regarding public meetings being cancelled, let me be clear. The Council of Ministers' decision so far has been to prepare guidelines on political campaigns. Even with this calm decision, as the responsible minister, due diligence is required to ensure that the MR is legally vetted. To date, the process is still ongoing. It is not under my purview to decide when the legals that are busy with this document is going to give it back to the minister. And this minister will not put pressure on anyone to do their job. Everyone is listening to Parliament, everyone knows what is going on, and the legal has to do their job. And when they do their due diligence and they give me that report, then we go forward. Because it has to be legally known if it is right based on our decisions in COM. It could be a wish, and maybe it could be against also the necessary laws that we have in place. So let the legals do their job, and when they give me that information, then I can elaborate further, and it will be publicly known to everyone. MP Westcott Williams, through you, Chair, asks, when will the guidelines be finalized? The MR will be finalized after the feedback is received from the Legal Affairs and will return to the Council of Ministers if necessary, based on that feedback, after which it will be signed by my person. 2, can public political gatherings be held tonight or tomorrow before the guidelines are published? Again, as long as the guidelines are pending, public political gatherings may continue. This has with respect, we have a police force, we have asked for assistance, we have assistance here, and the police force, once informed that there are certain public gatherings, will do their job to make sure that public safety and order is in place for our country. What does the minister consider on the results if the proposed measures were to be annulled? If it's supposed to be annulled, it will be annulled. Again, it is all based on the legal measures. COM, Parliament, everybody have their wishes in life. But we have the legals in place that will advise us if we are within the framework of the law. So therefore, as I mentioned, let's give the legals their chance to do their job. It is a wish from COM. We made a decision. The legals still have to say, listen, if that decision is feasible within the framework of the law. Are there any additional programs concerning gun possession being considered? On Monday upcoming, there is a driehoek overleg with the Prosecutor General's Office, the Chief of Police of the St. Maarten Police Force, and my person as the Minister of Justice. This meeting is planned. The topic will be on the agenda. Who is considered a high-profile person concerning the deployment of the Marines? If I can recall, I did also mention that the members of Parliament are the high-profile persons, and not limited to, as well, the Council of Ministers and other high-ranking individuals in our country. Through you, Chair, clarification questions from MP Marlin. Why are public gatherings restricted while others have been held without mass security? Public gatherings, again, cannot be restricted until if it is mentioned on a signed publication by my person, which again, it is at Legal Affairs, and we are waiting on feedback and will return to the Council of Ministers if necessary. And based on that feedback, then it will be signed by my person. Why is only one person given security, and how much does it cost the country? That is a decision made in consultation with different judicial agencies on the threat analysis. And I would like to deviate. That is under the purview of the Prosecutor General for St. Maarten, not the Minister of Justice. I did not make that decision to have any detailed security. It's an ongoing investigation, and as an official that worked as a police for many years, certain people will have that certain type of protection because they need to be questioned eventually. So in case something happened to them, we are supposed to be able to reach them, pull them in, and have that conversation with them. So of course, their safety and security at that time is looked at from that perspective. Not that we fear that anything will happen, but of course, a situation happened, the person is a witness, and therefore, precautionary measures were put in place by the Prosecutor General's office. The cost was also mentioned. I don't see it here in this lineup, but the cost was also mentioned in my answers with the SWAT team to the tune, I think, of 80, was it 80 or 60,000 guilders. Through you, Chair, MP Irian, clarification, question, and answer. Are any family members of the Council of Ministers provided with extra security? Presently, there is one family member of the Council of Ministers being provided with extra security. This decision was taken by the police force of St. Maarten as an extraordinary or precautionary measure. Okay? Will public meetings be ended a few days before elections? In what is the logic behind this decision? As there is no timeline, I cannot speak to the number of days before election that we can expect the MR to take in effect. Through you, Chair, from the Honourable Member of Parliament, MP Brugge, his clarification question was, how long ago was the quotation for scanners requested, and when was the feedback expected? In March 2021, Customs requested and received a quotation for a container X-ray scanner from Sectors Technologies, reps for Smith Detections. At the time, the container scanner would have cost approximately 2.9 million United States dollars, including civil works. Before this, Customs had invited Sectors Technologies to St. Maarten to assess the harbor facilities intended for the scanner's installation. During the assessment, it was determined that the scanner could not be accommodated within the current harbor setup due to space constraints. Does the new guideline stop people from voting or getting information to vote? No draft MR does not prevent anyone from voting or from getting information to vote. I will basically extend as well, based on conversations with the chief and other stakeholders, the Marines will not be standing at the polls. That is not what we are using the Marines for. They will not be at the polls. They will be assisting the police, just like the VKS, on patrols, with controls, etc., for our public safety. Can the minister share details of the guidelines? The guidelines are still awaiting the finalization of the legal vetting, and therefore the details will not be disclosed at the time. and why. Again, the Council of Ministers has made a decision. We have to see if the decision can be properly vetted and given us back their report as what can and what cannot. What brought the Council of Ministers to pause public gatherings? The guidelines are still awaiting the finalization of the legal vetting, and therefore the details, again, cannot be disclosed at this time. I would also like to mention, because all of these questions I know stemmed from one thing, the press briefing by the Prime Minister. He is the Prime Minister, but he's also human. A decision was made by the Council of Ministers, and basically I can only assume that based on his mind for the public safety, that because of the decision making by the Council, he chose, unfortunately, to publicly say something about it without having the proper guidelines put in place. And that's the only thing that I can come up with as to what and the reason why it was mentioned. MP La Cruz, through you, Chair. What is the purpose of the military's presence at the voting polls, and how does it impact our voter turnout? Again, like I mentioned, the military is not coming here to stand at voting polls. It is to strengthen the capacity of the police force from now and until a little after election, based on public order, based on safety for the public order. MP Jacobs, what constitutes a political public gathering and/or types of gatherings affected by the new measures of the COM decision? Again, we don't have an MR in place, so with that I cannot deliberate based on that question. Once an MR is put in place, then we can say basically what is constituted and what's not. How is the gun violence being addressed since last set of shootings that were not politically motivated? Based on the interministerial task force that has been activated as a result of the recent shootings, this matter is being addressed. In the next Driehoek meeting, scheduled for next week, this matter will be addressed. These points have nothing to do with the incident that took place, but have everything to do with public order and safety, for which I, as minister, is responsible for. Through you, Chair, the clarification question from the Honorable Member Roseberg. Can we get a clear deadline for when the legal affairs will finalize the guidelines? The first feedback we will receive hopefully today. And once it's received and adjusted, if it can be signed off with any other remarks, then it should be, like I said, published in short. But again, it's up to them to make that decision before I put my John Henry on it. What percentage of signed LBAs are working versus at home, versus those that are working and versus those that are home? This answer will be sent in writing as a calculation is required. Please note that some persons who received their national decree on sick leave has returned to work in the meantime. And again, as much as we can say, it is a random thing. There are individuals that I know that are home that also received their LBAs, but the higher percentage I know is those that are physically working. How is the military's presence different during hurricane season compared to now? The request was made for the same reason, to provide safety and security. To add mention, this will not affect the budget in any way, as it is not an extra cost, thus saving our country funds that can be used elsewhere. What happened to the 4 million guilders from the crime fund? This will also be sent in writing as it relates to sensitive information. What are the conditions for the limited capacity of the anchor monitoring bracelets? This answer will be forwarded to the Honorable Member of Parliament in writing, as the information received from SJIS is too long to mention during this public meeting. Through you, Chair, the clarification question from the Honorable Member Otley. Is the Minister's stance on public meetings consistent with the due diligence process? Yes. Everything is being processed thoroughly. Guidelines were first sent to Ye Seton Way for the legal vetting before publication to ensure that they align within the legal framework. Who in the Council of Ministers is pushing the motive behind this decision? Decisions are taken behind closed doors. The voting is confidential, and I will not disclose such information. Clarification question from MP Roseberg. Through you, Chair, can the Minister clarify the issue of the political motivation behind the incident of July 17? To date, there is no evidence or no information given to the Minister or the Prime Minister.
Honorable Minister, I will have to ask you to pause for a moment. I received notice from the Honorable Member of Parliament, Duran, and just to inform the Honorable Member that this will